Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is December 16th, and right now I am rocking some fantasy windstorm forecast gear here from the Pacific Northwest Weather Watch store. You can see that down below if you'd like to order anything. And if you do, which I see some people doing online there, go ahead and send me a picture of you on my Twitter account. I'd like to see it. Anyway, let's dive into things here. Lots to talk about. Infrared satellite imagery here. Cold Arctic air over Alaska. The Yukon Arctic front making its way down across British Columbia as we speak. Big ridge out here, which is allowing this Arctic air to get down into British Columbia here over the next few days. And we'll check out these systems as they move through the area here in some detail here in a moment. Taking a look here, you can see the National Weather Service Seattle calling for the downward trend of temperatures here as we start to deal with some snow chances starting this weekend on through early and mid next week. Looking at this is for Medford, Oregon. We have to remember that some places are going to be on the south side of this boundary that sets up somewhere right across Washington State probably here, but there could be some high snow levels down here across some of the southern Cascades as these Pacific systems are going to move in and be pretty warm on the south side of them, with a big battleground between the Arctic air across places across British Columbia here, and how much of this cold air will get down to the region. Still some questions to be answered on that front. Taking a look here, Pendleton, Oregon, talking about the potential variability in some of the storms as they move into the area. It's going to make a big difference on who sees how much snow and who gets the snow. Now, let's take a look here. This is the GFS on the left, Canadian on the right here, 850 millibar temperatures, 5,000 feet. Put this into motion, and you can see that Arctic air move down across BC there. But if you look at the Canadian, you can see a lot more cold air getting back into western Washington shown here versus the GFS as it keeps it bottled up into BC a little bit better there. Now, as we go on a little bit further into the future, this is Monday night, and you can see this system coming in pretty far north here on the GFS versus the Canadian here, which keeps us much colder across the region there. So you can see the big differences there, and I'm trying to point them out here for you. As you can see, the GFS really warm us up here as we go in through mid and later next week versus the Canadian, which really locks some cold air, especially east of the Cascades and across British Columbia versus the GFS. So you can imagine the nightmare for forecasters here in the upcoming days, hoping to get better model agreement as we get closer, but the GFS continues to be on the warm side of things versus the European and the Canadian. Now let's look at the Canadian on the left and the GFS on the right. This was the actual look at the system as they would come in. So the initial stuff comes down, convergent zone activity across some of southwest BC, western Washington. GFS is weaker with that feature there, especially across the central sound. Then as the cold air hangs around more on the Canadian here versus the GFS. Look at this storm system that dives into Haida Gwaii here on the GFS, a 991 millibar low. No sign of that here on the Canadian as a much weaker impulse moves down towards Oregon here. And this would really open up places all the way down to the Willamette Valley for some snowfall here on the left on the Canadian. GFS much warmer, would start at some snowfall, maybe northwest interior of Washington. BC, Vancouver Island would be much better targeted here, especially eastern portions, if the GFS were to verify there, with the Canadian keeping us much warmer. And then as we go off into the future a little bit, we've warmed up quite a bit here, maybe some freezing rain for some areas up there through the Fraser River Valley, places where cold air may be trapped up into British Columbia here. But look at the Canadian. Starts it off as snow really about Portland north here, potentially a nasty ice storm here showing up. And then you can see the eventual warm air eventually wins out here as we go through the extended. But this would be a very high-end impact transition here if we believe the Canadian versus the GFS. Now we're going to look at what the European shows us here in a minute, but I just wanted to show you the total snowfall amounts here. Canadian on the right, you can see a much higher impact situation going on here across western Washington, even down towards Portland and up through really East Vancouver Island, southwest BC. But still with the GFS, we still have some potential for a little bit of snowfall here, just not near as much. Now taking a look here, we've got the Canadian on the left, the European on the right. Hot off the press is the 12Z European on the right. There goes 850 millibar temperatures, 5,000 feet, sagging south across British Columbia here. Pretty good agreement really between the European and the Canadian here so far this morning. So you can see we've got two models saying it's going to remain cold. Then you can see, watch this boundary kind of lift northward as an impulse moves in on the European. The European has been pretty steadfast with some of the runs, showing a system diving into southwest Washington there, and then some cold air reinforcing that behind the system there. So some high impact potential here across the area, especially Portland North on both the European and the Canadian models here. As you can see, this very bitter cold Arctic air locked up across the interior of British Columbia shown there. Now let's take a short-term look here at the NAM 3KM. I'll put this into motion. You can see offshore winds as we go through the day today. Then you'll see the northwest winds approach as the Arctic front starts to sag south into BC here. Some southerlies across the sound here by Saturday night. You can see maybe some mixed rain and snow going on across some of the North Sound here, southwest BC. But then you'll see the Fraser River gap winds start to get going here as we move on later through Saturday night here. And that's when you can start to see some accumulating snowfall north Puget Sound areas here. As you can see these winds coming out, there's going to be some interesting convergence zones there up north of Everett, maybe Camano Island, up towards Bellingham, southwest BC, even Victoria out there could be getting some snowfall at this point. And that's as far as the NAM 3KM goes for now. So I wanted to point out that situation that's coming on. This is really the first threat of snowfall here as we go on in through Saturday night into Sunday morning. So let's take a wider scale look at things now. This is 500 millibar, 18,000 feet, European, North American. See Alaska, BC, Washington, Oregon here. If we go ahead and look at yesterday morning's run, you can see this polar lobe up here. Now let's watch what it does over the afternoon run. A little bit better. And this morning's run even better still. So that kind of gives us a reinforcing shot that would potentially make it out west of the Cascades here as we go through early to mid next week there. And that's kind of been the interesting system as we've been watching this over the last few days. So you can see that again yesterday morning, yesterday afternoon, and this morning here. So it is trending back towards a more favorable pattern here, at least on the European model, as we've been going on and through just the last day, really. It's kind of bounced back. Now taking a look here, this is what kind of temperature difference that lobe can make. So look at, this would be Wednesday night here. Look at this, 33 degrees in Seattle. Look at that, 17, 33. Just that little difference in that lobe can make a world of difference here through southwest BC, western Washington, even down towards the Willamette Valley. And you can really see the difference in temperatures across the Cascades into eastern portions on through Idaho, Montana, and BC as well here. And just a small difference in that position of that polar lobe up there in British Columbia. So now looking at this is as of yesterday. This would be the previous day afternoon, actually, the 14th afternoon. And you can see the snowfall differences as we scroll through these runs here. It's kind of all over the place, but each one of them does have a little bit of precip in the form of snowfall for the Central Sound. Some more impactful snowfalls across the northwest interior for southwest BC as well. Big snows probably coming for the Cascades no matter what. But this is this morning's run here, and this kind of shows, again, what the Europeans been showing here for a little bit before really the 14th. It was showing this system coming across and impacting some of the Central Sound as a wave moves into southwest Washington here with the potential for some deformation snowfall on the north side. The deformation is kind of where the southerly winds meet up with some northerly winds on the low pressure system as it dives inland. And now we'll take a look at that here. So this is this morning's run. You can see the offshore winds occurring now. So we put this into motion here, and you can see the Fraser River gap winds marking the beginning of that Arctic air moving into the Pacific Northwest. See it here as we go on in through Sunday night into Monday morning. And you can start to see some accumulating snowfall all the way down towards the Seattle metro here as we get into Monday morning. But then the Fraser River gap winds go, but then watch what happens out over the Pacific here. See these southwesterly winds and the northerly winds on the other side? Here comes that low pressure system in here, and you can see the boundary for that move right over the top of Portland on this morning's European run. Reinforcing shot of cold air would come back across western Washington in such a scenario in there. And by the time you get on into Tuesday evening and night, you can see the northerlies coming down the Puget Sound here, so we'd get pretty chilly overnight. So whatever fell would stick across the Puget Sound here. But again, this is just another one of these model runs that we have to take into account now. So we can't just start ruling out snowfall at this point for any given location, really all the way from Portland north through southwest BC on the west side of the Cascades. Now taking a look here, I wanted to show you the potential for this as we go through. This is Tuesday afternoon shown here, but watch what happens here in this morning's European run here. This is accumulated freezing rain in inches, and look at this as we go through Thursday afternoon, Thursday night, Friday morning. Look at some of these accumulations here. And this is notorious down here for the Portland area. We have a sea level gap. It's very easy to bring some east wind back in here to reinforce some of the cold air, especially at lower levels here across some of the Portland metro here. And really, there could be cold air trapped at the surface, especially with the strong warm front just riding over the top of it quickly and bringing some precipitation down into that cold air. So we have to watch out for the freezing rain potential as we go through mid and later next week as well. Some of the models have been hinting at this off and on for the last several days. Now looking at last night's European run, you can see the smattering of bigger snowfalls mixed in here with some lesser amounts. But even in some of these lesser amounts, we could be below freezing in these situations, and even an inch of snow is fairly disruptive when you are below freezing here across western Washington, Willamette Valley, Southwest BC. You guys know all about it here, all these hills that are going on. So yeah, it can still be disruptive. Even the GFS on the warmer side of things here does show some potential in its ensemble runs for bigger snowfall amounts for Seattle, Tacoma. And of course, during some of these storms, the amounts are going to be higher north and some of them are going to be higher south, depending on the tracks of these storms. We're still trying to work out those details. We still have a few days to go before that secondary system. The initial system moves through Sunday night into Monday for the Seattle metro area. Now, taking a look here, I wanted to show you guys this. Just came out yesterday, seasonal temperature outlook, January, February, March. Look at this. Northwest, below average signal as we go on in through January, February, and March here. So maybe we'll still flirt with some Arctic air as we go on in through these months as well. You can see the above average signal here as we go through these 3 months on in through 2023 there also. But yeah, I'm going to go run some errands today, but I'm going to come back and we're going to look at some new model updates here. The 18Z European, I'm going to do a live stream this afternoon and we will go over that tonight. I said I was going to do a live stream yesterday. I couldn't get to it. I was building this computer. This is the first video I'm doing with the new computer here. So I just went ahead and bought the stuff, put it together. It booted up on the first try here and things seem to be working well. So anyway, yeah, so we have a lot to talk about here, folks, over the next couple of days. We're going to watch each run as it comes in here and try to build some confidence in what's coming across the area. There are multiple different scenarios possible here, and there are some high impact scenarios and there are some bust potential. And when I say bust, that means that some of the Pacific Northwest will not get snowfall under those situations. But we are going to bring this Arctic air close enough that we have high confidence that somebody from Southwest BC down through Oregon is going to get really hit pretty hard here, I think, with this storm upcoming. And then again, we're probably going to get at least pretty chilly here across eastern Washington, and very high confidence with that Arctic air setting up shop over British Columbia and on in through Montana here as we go through the week upcoming here. So yeah, we'll check it out again tonight. Each model run tends to bring a little new wrinkle into things here, but we are getting some consistency, especially with the European and the Canadian. Look pretty similar here on how they bring the cold air off the coastline and back in to places west of the Cascades. The GFS remains an outlier right now, and to be honest, that does still make me a little nervous. If the GFS starts to agree, then we start to increase confidence, really, even though the European is a better model generally than the GFS. So anyway, I'm blabbering on a little bit here. We'll go ahead and do a live stream tonight, 18Z European run as it comes in. Good or bad, we'll just do it because things can flip-flop back and forth again. We'll take a look at some of the ensemble runs from the 12Z European then also, because of course we can get a lot more consistency on the position of this polar low based on the ensemble runs also. So anyway, hope you guys are having a good day. Buy some merchandise if you like it. Thanks to all my new members, all my new subscribers. Turn on the notifications, and I'll talk to you guys later today.